Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the leading employee benefits and engagement platform.
Hi everyone, this is Sushmita from the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast, and in today's episode, we will discuss why the future of leadership is personal. That is, we'll talk about leadership brand. I have Kellie Tomney with me, who is an international best-selling career and leadership author of FUTUREPROOF You and coach for women and leaders. Welcome to the show, Kellie.
Thank you, Sumita. Great to be here.
Okay, so before we start with the topic today, please brief us about your journey in the corporate world.
Okay, I was really interested in brands and people, even from sort of the school days. So I studied marketing and HR in university and really had a passion for leadership. So that started early on. And then I had a 15-year sort of career in terms of HR, talent acquisition and transformation. And I really started coaching even in a leadership capacity sort of early on with leading companies. So I really loved that, and then did lots of judging for awards, and I really enjoyed my corporate role and world. I really did. But it changed overnight, as a lot of people are finding worldwide right now. Things can change very, very quickly through, no fault of your own. So in a day, I went from earning a big salary to none, having a house to having no fixed address, having a corporate career to having none. So I really felt the effects of future-proofing. I'd been future-proofing organisations, but I hadn't future-proofed my leadership or myself. So that wasn't very smart of me. I'd been sort of fixing organisations and those sorts of things, which I imagine a lot of HR listeners on the call and on the podcast will relate to. But this whole concept of future-proofing really came about because, we can do so much for the organisations, but if we haven't really thought through what the future plan is for them, what are the different options, it can really be obviously a very tough ride back. So I started my consulting business from actually in the GFC, and really made that my mission around future-proofing organisations, leaders and careers. And now I've done that for 12 years, helping organisations and leaders across the world to really sort of do that and remain centred whilst the world changes around us, and really help us make the most positive impact that we can. So that's the journey to future-proofing, if you like, and able to relate to our HR listeners. I've been there. I really love the field and love partnering with leading HR people that are on the podcast.
Okay, amazing. So, Kellie, coming to our topic, why the future of leadership is personal, or what is, we'll be talking about leadership brand today. So, firstly, how do you define a leader's personal brand, or what is a leader's personal brand?
Okay, one of the simplest definitions Jeff Bezos had, which was around it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that typically starts to get people thinking around, okay, it's not just what I think of myself, it's what others think of me. And everyone has a personal brand. It's whether, they manage it or not. It only takes about 7 seconds for someone to form a personal brand impression, and about 2 seconds online for people to make an assumption about someone's personal brand. So we're very quick to judge, unfortunately, with our minds and our those sorts of things. So it's really a total experience of you is a personal brand. It's how people describe you. it's the reputation, it's how people introduce you to others, it's what they say about you when you're not in the room, it's the experience that they've had and expect to have with you. So it's not only their past experience, but also the future experience of that brand. It's the size and strength of your network. It's the unique value that you contribute to a company, your social circle, and a community. So it's every interaction. So it's like a product brand or a product experience. We have a personal brand and a personal leadership experience as well. And it builds over time, and it's defined by others' perception of you, good, bad, or otherwise. So, Look, everyone has one, but it's whether they leverage it for the greatest impact. Those are the ones that make the standout difference.
Right. So it is something that actually every leader has in them. And
yes,
first, you have to work on it, right? For a better, right?
Yes.
Right. So why is it so important for leaders to have a personal brand?
Okay, so history tells us in the science of leadership that is replaceable. So technical skills, those sorts of things, as we know, those are being automated. We've got artificial intelligence, those sorts of things. We've got our real functional skills that are replaceable. The art of leadership, where it's the art, is where the unique personal brand, the unique value of you, your unique value of being your leadership, that's not replaceable. So important for us right now, as we have all of this change in the world and in our organisations, is for leaders to be able to be thinking, what is my personal brand, my art of my leadership? Of course, we keep developing the science of our leadership, our functional technical skills. We've got to always keep up to date with the valued ones there. But the art of leadership, the vision, the purposeful leadership, being influential, being really engaging, helping our teams and organisations get to that next level of achievement, success and legacy for the organisation, well, that is through someone's personal brand. So the science of leadership alone won't future-proof your leadership or organisation. That's being replaced. What isn't going to be replaced is who you are. And if we think about it, if you're like the lead cyclist in the Tour de France, for example, and you're halfway up the mountain and you look around and you go, I've lost my team. It's a challenging ride. It can be really overwhelming. There's so much to do. So leaders typically focus on the technical and the science, what they know. But you look around and you go, oh, I've actually lost my team. They aren't there when you need them because you haven't truly engaged. You haven't really brought them along with you. You haven't maximised their potential. You don't understand what motivates, scares and excites them, what their purpose is. So they're not inspired, they don't feel valued, and you realise your team don't care about how fast you are, but they do care how much you care. And you can't cycle and just continue to be speeding up and just do more on your own. You do need others, and that's where the personal leadership brand really comes in to be able to be a tool to help our leaders truly inspire, engage and connect with their employees, particularly now. The whole world is being disrupted along with countries and industries and companies and people's professional and personal lives. So for leaders, it was a tough role before, but now we have these pandemic times, and now the targets are even harder to achieve. People's expectations have got even more. Right. And we've got so much restructuring happening. We can't keep putting more people on. Businesses are really stretched. So we've got to engage more than ever And people, and the multiple studies and research says that people want authentic leadership. They want connection. They want vision, engagement, and to feel valued. And personal
and
branding
as you rightly
is
mentioned
one
in
tool
the remote
that
work,
does that.
Yeah. As
Yes,
you
you go,
mentioned
Smita.
as you mentioned that people want more connection in this remote working structure, right? So
They
definitely
do.
the role of leadership has changed drastically, I believe.
It really has. And
Yeah.
people are isolated. They're disconnected. They've really got tough things happening in their family, in their community. So we can't be a leader just from a space of our technical expertise anymore. We've got to really connect and be whole leaders and connect in with our whole employees. Yeah.
Right. So, Kellie, you have so much knowledge in this area. So it would be lovely if you can share some of the, personal branding strategies for leaders.
Yes. The top three, I would say, there's a lot, more than that. But if I was to say top three, there are three keys for leaders. So for them to be able to future-proof themselves and the organisation, from there, to do that, firstly, they've got to future-proof themselves, their own leadership, because they influence and impact so many around them. So the first thing is that authenticity. It's the first key. And that's around if those leaders are able to be themselves, bring their whole selves to work, then others are able to do that as well. So we unlock their best selves, and then they're able to be really true to their own values. And actually what's happened over these times is that people's values have really changed too. They're not sure about, what they value, a few years ago, may be different to what it is now. So it's checking in on that, what's really authentic for you now as a leader. And then the next key is alignment, is actually looking at, what's the big difference that you want to make as a leader in your career and in your organisation and in your world. And I'm finding that this, and I imagine people on the podcast are finding this as well, their employees want to do more. This has been a huge increase over time. We've got big world problems happening, and people want their organisations to do more, and they want to contribute more. So what we do is we help them with their career purpose. What's their leadership purpose? And match their unique superpowers to what's valued in the market, not only now, because we need a whole lot of help now, but also for the future. And the skills and the things that, were valued in past, they are different now. So we check in and make sure that we're future aligned. The next key is actually activation. So once they know, right, this is the big difference that I want to make in my leadership in the world, then how do I activate it? How do I get into my power zone as a leader? How do I keep focused on the highest value and highest impact priorities to amplify their impact? As I know, listeners on the podcast, my goodness, HR are so busy. They were busy before. Now they just can be overwhelmed with people issues and wanting to help people in their organisation at the moment. And so there's just a huge amount to be done. But when we really step into our power zone and what's the highest value and the highest impact things, then that allows the leaders to be the most impactful that they can be, the most influential, the most adaptive, growing and valuable. So there's those three keys, and when they come together, they amplify people's impact. So I know that's a really quick run through, but if people want to know more, my book, I've detailed and I've got particular activities and people can work through what is their future-proof leadership brand.
Okay. So Kelly, thousands of people are now doing it. What exactly is thought leadership? How will you relate the above, the things that you have told to thought leadership?
Right. So what exactly is thought leadership? We are hearing more of it, aren't we? So it's where people provide their unique thinking, their own intelligent insights and guidance based on their experiences, their expertise, their viewpoints, and what's got results in the past. So many develop their thought leadership based on the years of experience in their discipline, their function, and then they test and trial it with different approaches, and then they see what really works. And I'm saying this because this is what I've done too. But they then become a go-to expert in their field. And typically a thought leader should be learning, continually learning. They're innovating, they're adapting in their field to really keep adding highest value in what they do and offer. So standout thought leaders typically have developed their thinking. They want to share it with the world. So like myself, developed a best-selling book, a methodology, you've got a respected reputation in the industry, and you're sharing your expertise to help more leaders, people and organisations. So thought leaders typically can be authors, speakers, paid mentors, coaches, facilitators, and they set the pace for the industry and future. So these are the ones that have the leading edge ideas, and the best ones know how to inspire, influence and lead others. And they've built long-term credibility and reputation with solving big problems in the world.
Right. Okay. So then coming to our genre, which is employee engagement, where does employee engagement stand in leadership branding? Is it important?
Yeah. Look, I believe leadership branding is one of the most effective tools for employee engagement that I've ever seen in my whole career, either HR or consulting. And the reason why is because people can get their heads around a brand. They know what it's like as a product, they know what it's like as an experience, and then they can think about themselves as a brand, and it really helps us connect. It really helps us connect, and as we know, engagement is all around, connection, really getting that extra from people. And what we've found obviously now is that, initially productivity improved with less commuting and working from home and stuff like that. But what we're finding now in the stats is individual engagement and team engagement is reducing because people are not as connected, and we understand that we're not as connected with our work colleagues, and we may not understand the vision of the future anymore. We don't know what the latest strategies and those sorts of things are. And so leadership branding allows us to really connect. It gives them much more purpose, and they really know what their priorities are to engage and how they are making a big difference. The strategies, when I've implemented these ones, they build leadership pipelines for the organisation. We unlock 50 to 95% more potential in people because they're more engaged. We get more profitability. People want to work with these companies. We get better inclusive, and better gender stats and stuff like this. And we just have a much more inclusive and thriving workplace because people are able to be more themselves, and they're actually able to work on the things that are much more impactful for the organisation and for their team, which means they're much more engaged.
Right. Then, Kelly, if we talk about social media, which is very famous now, so what effect has social media had on leadership personal branding?
It's had a huge impact, yes. So it's had a huge increase. The world of social media, the globalisation of work and the Internet of Things were well and truly on the rise before the last couple of years. So this has really been accelerated, with people being leaders are now more accessible. They're available 24/7. We can actually look up anybody online nowadays and actually get a snapshot of their leadership brand. So it's definitely had a huge impact there. Clients and customers check before a meeting, whether it's online or in person. So it's more obvious now if someone has got a personal brand that they are managing, and it's expected for you really to have an impactful, professional, engaging, at least LinkedIn profile at the very least. So
yeah, okay. So then what are the three most common mistakes leaders make when it comes to personal branding?
Okay. The number one that I see, the most common mistake, is where people try and fake it. And there's that saying, fake it till you make it. I don't believe in that with personal branding. It really doesn't work. We spot a fake a mile away. And as we said previously, to engage people, they want to be connecting with someone who's authentic, who's someone who's real, and we really crave authenticity. So in ourselves and in others. So in a leader, if someone's faking their personal brand, it just really doesn't work, and it devalues everything that they do and say. And really, we're not going to follow someone who is inauthentic. If we're up that mountain and our leader is up there cycling and they're not authentic and not really engaging with us, we're not going to be giving our absolute best to them. So definitely don't fake it. Have an authentic personal leadership brand is number one. Number two is where people don't leverage it for their organisation or their leadership. So people are expected now to be a role model and ambassador for their organisation. Now, this is all levels of leaders, not just the CEO getting his or her LinkedIn profile done. It's the whole organisation to attract the very best hires, to engage their employees internally and externally, and to build connections internally and externally. So just doing the work as someone in the organisation internally isn't enough anymore. So not personal branding and being invisible is really outdated. It's essential for people to have, particularly leaders, to have an impactful personal leadership brand internally and externally. And people that sort of say personal branding is just for getting a job is really old world thinking. It's expected for leaders to be up to date and future-proofing the organisation. The third mistake I see is around being really one-dimensional, and we've all seen this, versus being a whole leader. So just having your job title or your role at work isn't engaging at all. So that technical expertise isn't being a leader. So we want to really leverage your whole you personal brand. But look, I get that this is hard to do. People go, oh, how do I do it? And that's why I've shared the how in my book. So in each chapter, they've got, how to build your future-proofing leadership brand, how to do these things so that they can actually step by step work it through for themselves. Yeah.
Okay, so finally, what would be your suggestions for the HR leaders listening to us now? Yeah.
Yes, the suggestions. Look, someone listening on this podcast, I absolutely imagine they are smart, you're ambitious to make more impact. You know that your organisation needs a strategy to be more sustainable, to be more limitless and agile and aligned to growing, and you want something more meaningful and impactful, you've probably tried many, many different initiatives, which I have too. So I get it. I think, and what I know is that this, with the leadership brand strategy, whether that be a program, whether you give it as coaching for your key talent, whether you give out the books just to people, some of my clients, they're giving it out to every employee. It's a way to develop people and connect and get people connecting right now. And it's something we've been doing over time, which has put organisations in really good stead for future proofing. Or if you just want to start now, it will give a huge lift for your leaders and the organisation. So I would really consider helping your leaders and your talent to really get from feeling overwhelmed. They're managing and trying to lead their teams. Their teams have really got big challenges, whole of life at the moment. And we're wanting to help them get really clear and confident about who they are now, what they stand for, why they lead, where they're leading the organisation and the team. So this gives them a real practical and purposeful tool for them to go, okay, what is their personal brand now? How to leverage it to benefit the organisation, for their team and for their whole self, and how they can make the most impact during these times and into their future career. A lot of people have got, say, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years still more in their career, and they want to be more. They really want to make the biggest contribution that they can possibly make. And so this helps them get really clear on who they are now, their brand is now, and what their value is, and really make sure that that's really effective and the most maximised that it can be. But it's also helping them position and prepare for the future and make sure your employees are always adding to their future. So I would suggest there's leadership programs, there's exec coaching, there's access to a development program online for your staff, there's books for all staff. There's a lot of different ways that you can activate this in your organisation, which gets really, exciting and engaging for people. So I would really help them, I would educate them, and then what I would do is amplify it. Once you've got leaders getting clearer about what their leadership brands are, and then you can actually start really leveraging this. And what you'll start to see is you will become a standout organisation. You'll be recognised by your peers and by industry and by community as a really positive, purposeful, impactful legacy that you're leaving with your leaders and as an organisation. So that really amplifies your organisation's impact, and that's essentially what people want to come to work for. They want to make an impact. They want to really contribute, and that's now more than ever. And that lifts up engagement for everybody. So for the HR listeners, please get in contact. I'd love to just connect, help in any way, because really together we do achieve so much more.
Right. Amazing. So you have to tell us, how can our listeners reach out to you?
Okay. So look, email me directly. I am listeners here. I know they would be really, they're innovators. They want to collaborate. They want to partner. They are smart people. I'm really happy to connect individually. My email is Kellie, Kellie, at Kellie Tomney, TOMNEY.com is my email, and hopefully we'll have that on the notes here. But if you're interested to talk more about your organisation and or your leaders, I'm really happy to offer a complimentary consult to your Vantage HR influencers podcast listeners.
Right.
So really happy to do that. Just reach me on LinkedIn. So it's Kellie Tomney on LinkedIn or Kellie Tomney on Instagram. I'm always sharing the latest thinking, client stories, strategies, tips. So let's do this. More than happy to connect and make a really big impact in the world.
Right, sure. So, okay, that was great connecting with you, Kellie. Thanks a lot for joining me in the Vantage HR Influencers podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for new episodes.